The night had been quiet, the kind of silence that wraps around a house and makes everything feel still. But even in that calm, Emily Harper couldn't sleep deeply. She never really did. Being a single mother for so many years had trained her ears to stay half awake, ready for anything. So when the soft knock came, it wasn't loud, but it felt sharp enough to pull her from sleep instantly. She blinked, confused at first, wondering if the knock was part of a dream. But then she heard it again, a little hesitant, like someone wasn't sure if they should disturb her. Emily pushed her hair out of her face and sat up, her eyes adjusting to the dim, warm glow of the small lamp by her bed. That was when she heard her son's voice, quiet, shaky, and unusually unsure. "Mom, are you awake?" She recognized the tone immediately. It wasn't the tone of a boy who needed help finding something or who had heard a noise outside. It was the tone of someone carrying something heavy, something he didn't know how to handle alone. Emily felt that familiar pinch in her chest, the one all mothers feel when something isn't right with their child. She took a slow breath and tried to keep her voice steady. "Yes, honey. Come in." The door opened gently, almost afraid to make a sound. Noah stepped in, his figure outlined by the soft hallway light behind him. He wasn't crying, but his eyes held the kind of worry that made Emily sit up straighter. At 16, he wasn't a little boy anymore. He was taller than her now, stronger in some ways. But moments like this reminded her that he was still young, still finding his place in a world that often confused him. She moved the blanket and motioned for him to sit, but he only walked a few steps into the room before stopping. His hands were shoved into the pockets of his hoodie, and he looked like he had been standing in the hallway for a long time before knocking. That told her everything. Whatever he wanted to say wasn't easy. "What's wrong?" she asked. Softly, he didn't speak right away. He looked at the floor, then at the wall, then finally at her. When their eyes met, she saw a mixture of fear and determination. It scared her more than she expected. "Mom," he whispered, "I need to tell you something. Something important." Emily nodded slowly, encouraging him. But before she could ask anything else, he added something that made her whole body tense. It's about Dad." The word Dad hit her like cold water. She tried not to react, but the name carried years of pain, silence, and unanswered questions. She hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in a long time. Not by her, not by anyone. Daniel. Harper had disappeared from their lives a decade ago. No calls, no letters, not even a message to explain why. One day he had been there, laughing, cooking, telling stories, and the next he was simply gone. The wound had never fully healed. But Emily had learned to put a quiet cover over it for the sake of her child. Seeing Noah bring it up now, in the middle of the night, felt like reopening something she had closed long ago. Emily's voice came out softer than she intended. "What about him?" Noah stepped closer this time, finally sitting on the edge of her bed. His posture was tight, like he was holding himself together with invisible threads. He took a breath. "I found something," he said. "A few weeks ago." Emily leaned forward a little, her heartbeat picking up. But she kept her expression calm, not wanting to make him feel pressured. "What did you find?" He hesitated again. The pause was long enough for Emily to feel the weight of it. Then he said, "Letters. Letters from Dad. Old ones." Emily felt her breath catch. Her mind couldn't move fast enough to process what he was saying. Letters. After all these years, hidden somewhere in the house. She didn't understand how that was even possible. She stared at her son, waiting for more. "They were in the attic," Noah continued. "Inside the wooden box. The one you never open." Emily felt a strange jolt inside her chest. That box? She hadn't touched it in 10 years. It was one of the last things Daniel left behind. A box she never had the courage to sort through. Every time she saw it, she felt a wave of memories. She wasn't strong enough to face, so she kept it closed, pretending it didn't exist. "Why were you in the attic?" She asked gently, not accusing him, just trying to understand. I was looking for the old camera, he said quickly. One you said was up there somewhere. But then I found the box, and I don't know, Mom. Something told me to open it. Emily swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. What did the letter say? She asked, almost afraid of the answer. Noah shook his head. I didn't read all of them, but the ones I did. They weren't normal letters. They sounded urgent, like he was trying to explain why he left. Emily felt her chest tighten. She had imagined 1,000 explanations over the years. None of them had ever brought peace. Hearing that Daniel had written something, anything, made her feel a swirl of fear, hope, confusion, and anger all at once. Noah, she whispered, why didn't you tell me earlier? This time, he looked away, and when he spoke, his voice cracked just a little. I tried. I really did. But you've been doing so well lately. You've been smiling more, working on your art again. I didn't want to bring back something that would hurt you. Emily's heart softened instantly. She reached for him, placing her hand on his arm. He looked up and she could see how heavy. This had been for him to keep. You're never a burden, she said gently. Your feelings will never hurt me. I'm stronger than you think. He nodded, wiping quickly at his eyes. I just thought you should know. I felt wrong keeping it to myself. Emily pulled him close, holding him the way she used to when he was small, steady, warm, full of reassurance. Even though she felt shock twisting inside her, she didn't let him see it fully. Right now, he needed calm. He needed her. After a moment, Noah whispered, Mom, I think he didn't want to leave us. I think something happened. Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words sink into her. And even as she held her son, a quiet fear bloomed inside her. What if the truth she had avoided for so long was finally coming back? The house felt different the next morning, as if the walls themselves knew that something hidden had finally surfaced. Emily woke earlier than usual, her mind still replaying every word Noah had whispered in the dark. She had barely slept after he left her room. Her thoughts kept circling around the same point. Letters from Daniel hidden in the attic for 10 long years. She didn't know whether to feel angry, scared, hopeful, or simply exhausted. All she knew was that the truth she had avoided for so long was suddenly knocking at her door. When she walked into the kitchen, she found Noah sitting at the table, already dressed, his backpack untouched beside him. He looked tired, as if he had been awake for hours. He didn't look up when she entered, only moved his fingers nervously around a mug of untouched tea. Emily poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from him. The silence between them wasn't cold but heavy, filled with everything they hadn't finished saying last night. She didn't want to push him, but she also knew they couldn't ignore this. Noah, she said gently, can you tell me more about the letters? He took a breath, still staring at the table. I didn't read all of them. Just a few. I wasn't sure if I should. His voice faded for a moment, then steadied. But the ones I read, they sounded scared. Dad sounded scared. Emily tightened her grip on her cup, the ceramic warm against her shaking hands. Scared of what? Noah finally looked up. His eyes were serious in a way she had rarely seen before. Trouble. Something about people he worked with. Something went wrong. He wrote that he was trying to protect us. Emily felt a strange mix of shock and disbelief. All these years, she had built her own explanation that Daniel simply didn't want the responsibility anymore. That he had chosen a different life, leaving them to pick up the pieces. The idea that he had left to keep them safe didn't erase the pain, but it cracked open a door she had sealed shut for years. Noah. She said slowly, why did you wait weeks to tell me? He sighed, leaning back in the chair. Because I didn't know how. And because you seemed lighter, Mom. You've been laughing again, working on your sketches. I didn't want to bring old pain back into your life. Emily felt her throat tighten. She hadn't realized Noah had been watching her that closely. noticing her small attempts to rebuild a life that had once been full of ache. She reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "I'm glad you told me," she whispered, "even if it's hard to hear." He nodded, his posture relaxing a little, though worry still sat in his eyes. "There's something else," he added, his tone quiet but steady. "The letters. The ones I read. They said Dad never wanted to leave. He said he had no choice." Emily looked at him closely. "Did he explain why he didn't contact us after he left? Why he didn't try to send a message?" Noah shook his head. "He tried," he said softly. "He wrote that he was scared someone would trace his messages. He wrote that the safest thing was silence." Emily listened, struggling to process the idea that Daniel's silence wasn't abandonment but protection. It didn't erase the hurt she'd lived with for so long, but it shifted it. Reshaped it into a question she didn't know how to answer. "What did the letters look like?" she asked after a moment. Old Noah said, "Yellowed, worn, some not finished. Some with sentences crossed out like he was scared someone would read them." Emily imagined Daniel sitting somewhere alone, writing letters he couldn't send. The idea made something tighten deep inside her. She didn't know if it was sadness or longing or anger. Maybe it was all three. "Is that everything?" she asked gently. Though she sensed it WASN, single quotes T. Noah hesitated, then shook his head. "No, there's more. I didn't tell you everything last night." Okay. Emily leaned forward. "What else did you find?" Okay. He swallowed hard, looking as if the words weighed heavily on him. "An address." Emily blinked. "An address." He nodded, folded inside one of the letters. "It's a place in Seattle." I don't know if he meant to send it or if it was for us to find someday. But it looked like a place he stayed after. He left. Emily felt the air shift around her, as if the room itself knew this was bigger than anything she had imagined. She sat back slowly, absorbing the information. For 10 years she had lived with the belief that Daniel had chosen to walk, a way that he had disappeared into a life that didn't include them. Now, the possibility that he had left clues she had ignored because she was too afraid to open a dusty wooden box, made her chest twist. "Noah." "Ha!" she said softly. "How long have you known about the address?" "Since the day I found the letters," he admitted. "I didn't know what to do with it. I thought about going by myself, but then I realized that would just make things worse. I didn't want to lie to you." Emily felt a deep wave of emotion wash over her, the kind that comes when love, fear, and guilt mix together. "I'm glad you didn't go alone," she said, "and I'm glad you came to me." He nodded, looking almost relieved to hear her say it. The morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, warming the room, but neither of them felt the warmth. Their minds were somewhere else in the past, in the letters, in the unanswered questions that suddenly felt alive again. After a moment, Noah asked the question she knew was coming. "Mom, what do we do now?" Emily stared at him, realizing he wasn't just asking about next steps. He was asking whether they were ready to face a truth that could change everything, good or bad. She took a deep breath. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. "But we'll figure it out together." Noah nodded, accepting the answer even though it wasn't clear. But then he spoke again, his voice quieter than before. "Mom, do you think he's still out there?" Emily hesitated. She wanted to give him something certain, something comforting. But the truth was complicated. Daniel could be anywhere. Or nowhere. The letters were old. The address was old. They had no proof of anything. "I don't know," she whispered. "But maybe we're meant to find out." The words surprised her, but they felt right, honest, cautious, but open to possibility. As the morning continued, neither of them touched their breakfast. They sat there in the quiet, letting the weight of the truth settle into the spaces between them. And in that silence, one thing became clear. Their lives, once steady and predictable, were already changing. Not because of choices they made, but because of truths hidden in the attic, waiting to be found. The past wasn't finished with them, and neither was Daniel's story. The attic felt colder than the rest of the house, as if time had been waiting there quietly, untouched for years. Emily climbed the wooden steps first, her hand gripping the rail as she pushed open the attic door. Dust floated in thin beams of morning light, making everything look older, softer, almost frozen. Noah came up right behind her, his footsteps unsure but steady. Emily rarely visited the attic. It was a place filled with old boxes, memories from a life she had slowly learned to live without. But today, none of those old fears mattered as much as the box waiting in the corner, the one that used to belong to Daniel. Her eyes landed on it instantly. The wooden box was simple, but familiar, with a small metal latch that looked worn and aged. For 10 years, she had walked past it without touching it. And now, here she was, standing right in front of it with her son, both of them holding their breath. Noah stepped closer. "It's right where I left it," he said softly. He didn't touch it. He seemed to be waiting for her to take the lead. Emily knelt down, wiping the dust off the lid with her sleeve. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of everything this box represented. The beginning of her marriage, the end of it, and everything in between. She looked at Noah and nodded gently, letting him know she was ready. She unlatched the box. The metal clicked softly, echoing in the silent attic. Slowly, she lifted the lid. Inside were old envelopes worn, slightly yellow edges curled. Some were tied with thin string. Others were loose, stacked in no real order. All of them had her name on them, written in Daniel's handwriting. Handwriting she recognized instantly. Seeing it again felt like being pulled into the past. Emily swallowed hard and lifted the first envelope. It felt fragile in her fingers. She opened it with care, her hands shaking so much she almost tore the paper. The letter inside began the same way Daniel always used to write to her years ago. "Before everything fell apart, Emily, I don't know if you'll ever read this." Her eyes moved across the page, her breathing slowing as the meaning of each line sank in. Daniel wrote about danger, about mistakes he hadn't expected, about a business partner he had grown to fear, a man who pressured him into illegal deals, then threatened him when Daniel refused. A man who knew where Daniel lived, who knew about Emily and Noah. Daniel had written about nights he spent awake, pacing, worrying, trying to figure out how to protect his family. And then one night, the threats became real. Someone followed him home. Someone left a warning on his car. That was when he made the decision he never wanted to make. To leave. Emily stopped reading for a moment. Her heart pounded painfully. In her chest, she had once begged Daniel for an explanation. She had begged the silence for answers. And now the truth was sitting in her hands, written in rushed, uneven lines. Noah knelt beside her. "Mom, are you okay?" She nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was. "I'm just trying to take it all in. Read the next one," he said gently. Emily reached for another envelope. This one torn at the corner as if Daniel had opened and closed it many times before, writing his final words. She unfolded the letter and continued reading. This one explained how he tried to create distance, how he stayed in cheap motels using fake names, hoping his absence would break the connection between the danger and his family. He said he wrote letters because he wanted Emily to know the truth someday, but sending them was too risky. He couldn't take the chance of someone finding out. The last line of the letter was the one that hurt the most. "If disappearing keeps you safe, disappearing is the only choice I have left." Emily closed her eyes, tears forming despite her efforts to stay composed. She had imagined so many reasons for his leaving. This was one she had never allowed herself to consider, that he had left out of fear for their safety, not out of lack of love. She took another deep breath and reached for the next letter. This one was shorter, the handwriting more frantic. It spoke about someone following him again. How he had changed phones, changed cities, changed everything. How he worried every minute that the danger would find him or find them. how he didn't know how long he could keep running. But the letter ended abruptly, the last sentence unfinished, ending in half a word. Emily turned the page over, hoping for more. There was nothing. Noah leaned closer. That's how the others are too, he said quietly. Some letters stop in the middle. Some don't make sense, like he wrote them while moving or hiding. Emily rubbed her forehead, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on her. Why didn't he come back when things got better? Why didn't he send something later? Anything? Noah hesitated. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe things never got better. Emily looked at him. His face was serious, almost too mature for his age. She didn't want him to grow up in a moment like this, but he already had. Finding those letters had forced him into a kind of truth he never asked for. Mom? Kay said softly. There's something else I found. Emily's heart tightened again. What is it? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This was tucked behind the last letter. He handed it to her. Emily unfolded it, expecting another unfinished message, but it wasn't a letter. It was an address. A Seattle address written in Daniel's neat handwriting. She stared at it, trying to understand what it meant. Was it a place he stayed? A place he wanted her to find someday? A place he had gone when everything fell apart? Noah spoke again. I think he wanted us to see it someday. Maybe not right away. Maybe when we were ready. Emily didn't know what to say. For 10 years, she had believed Daniel walked away without a second thought. Now she was learning he may have spent those same 10 years looking over his shoulder, protecting them from a distance. And here she was, too afraid to open a box, while Noah, her brave, curious son, had found the truth she had hidden from. The attic felt colder now, but also filled with something new possibility. Painful, uncertain, frightening possibility. Emily folded the address carefully and held it against her chest. For years, she had convinced herself that the past was finished. But now, the letters spread around her and the address glowing like a quiet signal. She realized the past was calling her back. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to listen. The Seattle address stayed on the kitchen table for 2 days, untouched but impossible to ignore. Every time Emily walked past it, she felt a strange pull. Fear, curiosity, and something deeper she didn't want to name. Noah watched her quietly. During those days, giving her space, but also waiting for her to decide what came next. She could see the hope in his eyes, but she could also see his fear of hoping too much. On the third morning, Emily woke with a certainty she hadn't felt in years. She went into the living room, found Noah packing his school bag, and said in a calm, steady voice, "We're going to Seattle." Noah froze. His backpack strap slipped from his shoulder. "You mean today?" "Today," she said. "We're not running. We're not hiding. We're finding answers." His stunned expression slowly melted into something she hadn't seen on him in a long time. Relief mixed with courage. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, Mom." They packed lightly, just enough for an overnight trip. As Emily zipped her suitcase, she felt her heart race. But it wasn't fear anymore. Determination. For 10 years she had lived with shadows, with unanswered questions, with a quiet ache she never admitted to anyone. Now, for the first time, she felt like she was walking toward the truth, not away from it. The drive to Seattle took hours long. Stretches of highway passing under a gray sky. Rain came and went, tapping softly against the car windows. Noah watched the road in thoughtful silence, sometimes glancing at his mother as if checking to make sure she wasn't changing her mind. But Emily kept driving, her hands steady on the wheel. When they finally reached the address, it wasn't what either of them imagined. They expected a house or a rundown motel. Instead, it was a quiet apartment building near the edge of the city. It's not fancy, not broken down. It's just normal, unremarkable, almost too ordinary for a man who had vanished into danger. Emily parked across the street. Her chest tightened. "Are you ready?" she asked. Noah nodded. If you are? They walked together toward the entrance. Emily pressed the buzzer with shaky fingers. No one answered. She pressed again. Still nothing. Stepped back, confused, unsure what to do next. Then a voice came from behind them. Can I help you? They turned. An older woman carrying grocery bags stood near the sidewalk, watching them with kind, curious eyes. Emily forced a polite smile. We're looking for someone who might have lived here. Daniel Harper. The woman shifted the bags to her other arm. Yes, I remember him. Quiet man, kept to himself. Emily's heartbeat quickened. Is he still here? The woman hesitated. No, he hasn't lived here in years. Then she looked more carefully at Emily. Are you family? Emily nodded, unable to speak. The woman softened. He talked about you. Not often, but enough for me to know he cared. Emily's breath caught. She hadn't expected that proof from a stranger that she had never stopped mattering to Daniel. He left something, the woman added suddenly, as if remembering. A box. He asked me to keep it, said someone might come for it one day. Emily blinked, stunned. Do you still have it? Yes, the woman said. Wait here. She walked toward the building next door. Moments later, she returned with a small cardboard box, taped shut, but carefully labeled with Emily's name. Emily took it gently, as if it were something fragile. Thank you, she whispered. I hope it brings you peace, the woman said. Before heading inside, Emily and Noah walked back to the car, silent but trembling with anticipation. Inside the car, she placed the box on her lap and peeled the tape slowly, her fingers unsteady. Inside were letters. Not old ones, new ones. It's far more recent than anything they found in the attic. The top envelope had the date from 5 years ago. Beneath it, one from 4 years ago. Then 3. Then 2. He had been alive, writing, thinking of them all this time. Emily opened the first letter. Daniel's handwriting was the same, gentle, slightly slanted, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. Emily, I hope someday you find this. I am safe, but I am still watching the shadows. I want to come home, but I don't want danger following me back to you. Emily swallowed hard and opened the next. Noah must be grown now. I imagine him tall. I imagine him brave. Sorry, I'm missing it. Tears filled Noah's eyes as he leaned over her shoulder. Another letter. I check the news every few months to be sure nothing has reached you. I think the danger's gone, but I won't risk your lives without knowing for sure. Emily kept reading each letter, making her heart twist tighter. Then she reached the last envelope dated just 8 months ago. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Double quotes, Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've come looking. I'm not hiding anymore. If I can't come home to you, then I hope someday you'll come to me. I'll be waiting. D at the bottom of the letter was a phone number. Emily stared at it, stunned. A phone number? A way to reach him, Noah whispered. Mom. Call him. Emily hesitated, the weight of 10 years heavy on her. What if he didn't answer? What if he did? What if everything changed? But then she remembered every night she spent wondering why he left. She remembered the letters, the fear, the love, hidden between the lines. And she remembered that she wasn't just doing this for herself. She took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Emily squeezed Noah's hand. On the 4th ring, a voice answered, soft, cautious. Familiar, Emily. Her breath broke. Daniel? There was silence, warm, shaking, full of emotion too deep for words. Then he whispered, I've been waiting for this moment for years. Emily closed her eyes, feeling 10 years of hurt and longing soften into something she didn't have a name for. Where are you? She asked. Close, he said. Tell me where you are. I'll come. Emily looked at Noah, who nodded quickly. Eyes bright with hope. She gave Daniel the address. When she hung up, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something she had forgotten she could feel. Hope. A few minutes later, a car pulled in too. The parking lot. Emily stepped out first. Noah beside her. The door opened. A man stepped out. Older, thinner, tired. But when his eyes found them, all the years between them vanished. Emily's heart thudded, soft and sharp all at once. Daniel whispered her name. And just like that, a long-closed story finally opened again.